If you've been confused about gouache versus acrylic gouache and understanding what acrylic gouache even is, trust me, we've all been there. Today's video is perfect for you. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Shivani and I'm an artist based in Chennai, India. Chennai is a sunny city in the south of India and summer is here already, and how it's just been crazy hot, and we're on the coast, so it's a very sultry city, and when I record these videos I have to turn off the fan. So over the last few videos, I don't know if you guys noticed, but my energy levels have kind of been down because I've just been like sweating, and then my hair like gets frizzy while I'm recording and I get all conscious about it, which I know it sounds vain, but yeah, it just obviously affects your self-confidence a bit. You want to be feeling like your best self when you're recording these things. So today I tried to change my setup a little bit. I switched over to a selfie camera so I can at least look at what I'm recording now and, adjust my hair or just turn on the fan for a bit if I need to. Anyway, let's get into our topic for today, which is acrylic gouache. For today's video, I'm going to be trying out Turner Acryl Gouache, which is one of the most popular acrylic gouache brands, and it was very generously sponsored by Hindustan Trading Company for this video. I'm going to be testing out the colors in the set, trying out the different techniques, and explaining to you what the differences are from regular traditional water-based gouache. And I'm using them for the first time as well, so it's going to be interesting to see what the results are. Like I mentioned earlier, the gouache for today's video is sponsored by Hindustan Trading Company. The link to their online store is in the description, and if you're a customer in India, I also have a 10% discount code which you can use to avail 10% on any of your purchases. So the discount code is Shivani10. I'm mentioning that on the screen and in the description. So I'll start by unboxing the Turner Acrylic Gouache. I actually really like the box. It's very sturdy looking and has a very premium look to it. I've got the set of 12 colors, and inside the box the colors are neatly laid out, and it comes with a couple of brochures. So this one brochure tells us a little bit of information about the materials on which you can apply these paints, which is very interesting because unlike traditional gouache, this can be used on canvas, paper, wood, metal, glass and fabric. And on the back of this brochure, they've mentioned all the colors that are available. I'm first going to start by swatching all of the colors in this set of 12 that I have. And I'll take all the colors out on my palette to do that. Let's talk a little bit about acrylic gouache while I'm laying these out on my palette. So the difference between acrylic gouache and traditional gouache is mainly in the binders that they use, and this is, I'm talking about the difference in composition. Traditional gouache uses the pigment with gum arabic, whereas acrylic gouache uses the pigment with acrylic binders. So acrylic binders are the same binders which acrylic paints use, and I think there's a lot of confusion among artists about, what is gouache, what is traditional gouache, what is acrylic gouache, what is acrylic paints, and trust me, I've also been there. It's a completely legit concern. But I think the simplest way that I can put it for you is that acrylic gouache gives you very similar results to traditional gouache in its look. So it is matte when you paint it, unlike acrylic paints which have a bit more shine. Also, they are a lot more opaque than acrylic paints. So all the properties while you're using it are very similar to traditional gouache. But the difference between traditional gouache and this is that traditional gouache can be reactivated with water. And I'm going to be diving a lot more into each of these points as we go along the video, so just keep watching. So I'll start by swatching the white on black paper so that we can see exactly how opaque it is, and I'll swatch all the others on standard white paper. And just to tell you all the colors in my set that I have right now, they are white, permanent lemon, permanent yellow deep, permanent scarlet, permanent red, sky blue, cobalt blue, permanent green light, permanent green middle, violet, burnt sienna and jet black. Make sure the paints are not drying on your palette. Like I mentioned, this is one of the features of acrylic gouache. Once they dry, you won't be able to reactivate them with water. So just make sure they're not drying. So these are all our colors, and I actually ran out of space for black, so I'm just gonna add it as a little bar at the bottom. So my first thoughts are that the colors are beautiful, bright and vibrant. I'm actually pretty impressed with them. They've got a lovely matte finish. I think I was not expecting it to be that nice. And some of the colors are still drying, but you can look at the others and see how matte they are. The colors are just very beautifully pigmented, and I can see how they would definitely work for many different art styles. It's good to have a spray bottle with water next to you to keep your paints wet in case they are drying on the palette. You can just give them a little spritz and that should be helpful. So now let's see if we can try out different consistencies, because I want to see if I can achieve this sort of watercolor-like transparency, which I can achieve with traditional gouache, and that's one of the reasons I love it, because it's so versatile. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it with these, so let me try that out. And by the way, if you want to know more about gouache consistencies, I made a much more detailed video specifically about that topic, which I'm linking to above. So I'm starting by using the paint fresh out of the tube and then watering it down as I go to see the range of consistencies possible. And this worked out quite well, which means you can use this for background washes and things like that pretty much the same way you would use traditional gouache. I'm actually quite happy with how it turned out. I'm now going to mix white with a color to see how vibrant the color is. So one of the differences when you use affordable gouache versus expensive gouache, you'll see that the white sometimes is not so vibrant, or it makes the color a bit muddy. So that's a good test. And also adding white to a color helps to make it more opaque when you're using good gouache. So that's why I wanted to do this test. And it's actually mixed into a very beautiful color. I'm very happy with that. I'm now going to try dry brushing to see how that works out, and so I'm picking up some relatively dry paint and lightly brushing it over my paper, and that worked out pretty well. And this is just to show you what I was saying about once the paint being dry, you can't reactivate it with water unlike traditional gouache. So with traditional gouache, once you've painted it also, you can go back and add some water and it will reactivate the pigment. So that's something you can't do with this. I'm now going to try color mixing and layering through a simple botanical illustration. For this I'm using some sky blue, some permanent lemon and burnt sienna. I'm mixing the colors together. I'm using the tip of my brush to create a thin line and then pressing down the belly of the brush and lifting it back to the tip again. I actually love how smoothly the paint is moving on the paper. So I'll now add in all the leaves. I'm now going to mix in some white for a lighter tone, and I'm going to add some overlapping details on the leaves because I want to test out layering. This is definitely a lot easier to layer as compared to traditional gouache, because with traditional gouache, if you don't control the water on your brush properly, you can often find that you're reactivating the base layer when you're trying to layer over it, and that can be a little bit hard to work around. But with this, I'm not at all having to worry about my base layer. I can just freely paint over it and nothing goes wrong with it. Hey guys, just wanted to pop in here and let you know that just yesterday I launched a free resource which I think you're going to love. So it's an e-booklet of sorts where I take you through 8 different things that you can paint with gouache as a beginner or even as an experienced professional who's just feeling a little bit creatively blocked and you don't know what to paint. So I take you through how to paint 8 different things, and then I also share with you 17 bonus prompts. So in total it's 25 different ideas for the days when you don't know what to paint. And it's not just for gouache artists. The paintings are done with gouache, but you can totally apply it to any different medium because it's just different prompts and you can paint it with whatever you like painting with. So I really hope you'll check that out. It's completely free. The link is in my description, and let me know what you think. So the final thing I'm going to do is bring everything we spoke about together in the form of a landscape illustration. I'm just going to keep it very simple, use colors in a gradient. I'm going to be using shades of purple for this, for which I have some cobalt blue already on my palette, and I'm mixing that with some permanent red. I'm actually trying to extract as much of the paint which I already have on my palette, but it is definitely difficult to pick that paint up because it's already started drying. I'm now taking some white and mixing up a much lighter shade. I'm adding even more white and I'm going to try to blend a sort of light to dark transition in the sky. So I'll start by painting the sky. Taking some more white, adding it at the bottom of the sky, and I'm going to try to blend those together. I'm spraying the paint with water every now and then just to make sure it stays wet. Now I've mixed up a more medium tone of purple by taking the dark tone and mixing it into the light tone. I'm going to keep darkening it as I go to create different layers. So now I'll paint the mountain range which is furthest away, and then I'll start moving to the mountain ranges which are more in the foreground. I keep darkening the shade as I go. Two things I'm actually finding hard as I work with this, because it is my first time working with the medium as well. One is the blending of the sky. I did struggle a bit with that because I'm more used to traditional gouache where I can go in with a color even after the base layer is dry, and I can still blend it by just adding some water and reactivating the paints on my paper. And that's something I couldn't do with this. So I had to be very quick, and to be able to blend properly, I had to move very fast. The second thing is I am struggling a bit to understand the amount of paint I should have on my palette, because it's definitely slightly different from using traditional gouache. I am used to that medium and I know how much paint to mix up on my palette, but with this I'm still getting used to it. And actually there's a third point, which is the water control. So that's another thing I'm slightly struggling with, but that also has to do with the fact that I didn't mix up enough paint on my palette, definitely not as much as I would have liked to, and that is causing me to add a lot more water while I'm painting, and that's making it a little bit patchy on the paper. I'm now going to just take some white and try some dry brushing on the sky to create like a cloudy effect. I found that my brush was a little too wet, so I'm just taking off the excess moisture and starting again. We'll now take off the masking tape, which is of course the most satisfying part of doing paintings like these. And there we have it, a simple gradient landscape. You can see here on the side I have this little bit where the paint went outside. With traditional gouache, I would just go in with clean water on my brush and work at it and take off that stain, but that's something that I can't do with acrylic gouache, so I just wanted to point that out. And like I mentioned to you while I was painting, there were just these few challenges I think that I have to use the medium a bit more to be able to understand and get better at it. But other than that, I'm actually very happy with the results. It's matte, it's beautiful, the colors are vibrant, and it's exactly what I would want when I'm doing a gouache painting. So I'm impressed with it, and I think the fact that it's easy to layer is such an advantage when you're using acrylic gouache. And I hope this clarified a lot of the doubts that you have about the medium. If there's anything that I missed out or anything else that you'd like to further clarify, please drop a comment and I'll be happy to get back to you. And the final thing I wanted to sort of ask you about is, I have this polo vase lying around at home which is unglazed, so it's an unfinished polo vase. So I was thinking, since acrylic gouache can lend itself to different applications, maybe I could try painting this vase sometime. And if you guys are interested in that, please let me know in the comments, because then I can create a process video and show you how it turns out. So I was thinking I could just use this vase, put on a base coat of paint, and then maybe create some floral illustration on it. And it would also give us a good understanding of exactly how much paint you would need to mix up to cover this kind of a surface area. So I think that's an interesting experiment. Let me know if you guys would be interested to watch that. I hope you enjoyed that video. So based on today's video, do you think acrylic gouache is something that you might be interested in trying, or would you prefer to just stick with traditional water-based gouache? Let me know in the comments. I would love to know what you think. I think for me personally, even though I loved the properties of this, it is not going to be my first medium of choice, but it's going to be something I think I will be exploring a bit more in the future, because I did love the vibrancy of the colors, and I love the fact that I can layer without worrying too much. So I think for the right kinds of applications, this is definitely a medium that I'm going to be adding to my collection. If you want to know more about traditional gouache and everything you need to know about working with it, firstly, I'm linking to a playlist up here, which has all of my past videos about it, and I'll be adding all my future videos as well into the same playlist. You can learn a lot about gouache, consistencies, color mixing, everything. I have a whole bunch of videos over there. Additionally, I'm leaving a link in my description to my Skillshare class, which I just put out a few weeks ago. It's a 50-minute class which is in detail and explains to you everything you need to know about working with gouache. So I think that that's a great place to get started as a beginner, or even if you've used some other medium and you want to learn about gouache. So definitely check that out. You'll even get a 1-month free subscription. I'm leaving the link in the description. So I have lots more interesting content coming out in the weeks to come, so make sure you subscribe below to stay updated. I'll see you next time. Bye.